he could step on the stage and this huge person in these great big boots, and people would fall about, just laugh at him. It was an indefinable quality.
You know, when I was a kid, I was ugly. I was.
His timing was wonderful. He could ride an audience.
I was.
And he always looked surprised when he got laughs, which was endearing in its own way.
He went to places that no one else dared go. He just was a total original.
His reputation for drinking was awesome. It was a disguise he could assume at any time in order to be socially comfortable.
I felt I never really met him. I met Tommy the performer. I very rarely got any glimpses of Tommy the person.
Well, I wouldn't say he was a pushing child. He was rather on the quiet side. But he was always very, very keen on conjuring. Uncle Tom was born in South Wales, Tommy's father, and Auntie Gert was born in Devonshire. Tommy was born in Caerphilly and came to Exeter when he was 3.
After leaving school, Tommy Cooper had a brief career as an apprentice shipwright before joining the army in 1940. It was whilst he was stationed in Egypt that he began to develop his act, which would barely change throughout his entire career.
Egg bag, bag, egg, egg bag, bag, egg bag, egg bag. And now we have one long single piece of rope.
In 1946, he met and married Gwendolyn Henty, who he always called Dove. They had 2 children, Thomas and Vicky. After leaving the army, Tommy Cooper began touring the theatre and variety club circuit. In 1947, he began his long television career, even gaining some success with American TV audiences.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Cooper. I was sunbathing this morning, and I was lying in the park, and a little boy crept across to me, and he poured something all over my back. He said, "This will make you brown." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Gravy."
Always hugely popular in Britain, by the late 1960s, he was recording his 6th television series.
Well, I think he was a sure ratings getter, because everything he says produces laughter.
Just before the show, the producer said to me, he said, "How are you tonight?" I said, "Well, I'm feeling a little bit funny." He said, "Well, get out there before it wears off."
Daily Mail or Daily Express, I think they interviewed about 100 people to find someone who didn't like Tommy Cooper. They couldn't find anyone who didn't like Tommy Cooper.
There was a foreman on the building site. A foreman on the building site. He looked at the man at the top of the ladder. He said, "You, get your money in your cars, you're finished." I said, "Eh?" He said, "Get your money in your cars, you're finished." I said, "Eh?" He said, "Get your money in your cars, you're finished." I said, "Eh?" He said, "Oh, I sacked somebody else."
He was probably one of the highest earning comics around. He was extremely popular, and he always delivered.
I'll produce an empty paper bag, and will I produce a live pigeon.
Well, I'd seen him lots of times on stage, but I'd never actually met him until the first day of rehearsals. And as I remember rightly, I was sitting down, and this huge man came in. I hadn't realised till then just how big he was.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
And what he always looked when he came out, as if he'd been hurled on stage. He always looked surprised and panicky.
He didn't like rehearsing, and he didn't like the idea of it being scripted and down and set in concrete and so on. He liked to be freer than that.
We learned as we went through the series to make the sketches shorter and shorter. His attention span was not perhaps his strongest suit.
You serve lobsters?
Oh, certainly, sir.
Right. What are you going to have?
Well, the interview was the one each week, which was the one I found most difficult to prepare for.
He liked the idea of the interview sketch. I know there were a man dressed in normal 1960s clothes interviewed somebody in historical garb. I think he liked that because it was very freewheeling and full of gags.
With Tommy, you never quite knew where the laughs were going to come, even though they were the ones in the script, but there'd be 2 or 3 others, and he would build on them, and he would work the audience on them, you know, respond to the audience and so on. So that was always a bit of tightrope walking for me.
Never once was he relevant to any kind of political situation, any kind of social situation, any kind of situation. He very seldom referred to the setting he was in, or the set behind him, or the rest of the show. He didn't talk about other performers. He didn't do jokes about famous people. He didn't do anything that was about life. He was like a microcosm. Nothing affected the lunatic world in which he lived.
Listen, listen, listen.
I mean, he relied heavily on alcohol, but he never drank on the day of the show. And being rather dependent on the bottle, by the time it came to the show, he was starting to dry out. And he would be sweating very much and very, very hyper, you know, which is another reason for the size of performance on television.
He shot himself.
Really?
Yeah, right in the matter, chum.
Well, what's the matter, chum?
Nothing. What's the matter with you?
Although he was best known as a television star, Tommy Cooper was as much in demand as a live performer as he was a TV personality. He spent much of his life on the road, sometimes turning down lucrative television deals to perform in variety clubs and theatres.
He had a lady with him, which was his dresser. Very nice lady. She always came with him.
I don't know that Tommy, not being the greatest housekeeper in the world, could have managed to shift all his gear around if it hadn't been for Mary Fieldhouse.
I first met Tommy when I was working for Thames Television. And after a few weeks, it sort of became obvious, I think, that we were both slightly smitten with each other. And we started a relationship pretty well immediately. We certainly were together for about 17 years. He told me that he was going to travel, and he said, "Would you like to travel with me?" I did quite a lot of paintings of Tommy whilst we were on tour in various hotels. They were just memories, just sort of whatever happened whilst we were in particular places. We'd be taken to the hotel. I unpacked and got everything ready for him. He had so many medicines. I mean, for his nose and his eyes, and of course, a lot of cough things. I think he was a bit of a hypochondriac, I really do. And he was a pretty superstitious person. You couldn't put the fez down with the head on the tabletop. It had to be open because the spirits were allowed to be free to roam.
What you had to do is you had to look after him while he was here. Well, I used to look after him and give him a free bar. The dressing room was like his home for the week. I mean, he's got a hotel and here. He would go on at 11 o'clock. Yeah, 11 o'clock, and he would do 1 hour.
Here's the trick now with 3 pieces of rope. Watch very closely. Look, you go un, a, deux, trois. There's a bit of French there, you see. Like that. Well, you just bend this over here like this. Now, the idea of the trick is this. You just get one of the loops, 3 pieces there like that. See? One of them there, look, like that, see? And what you do then, see? You put this into a loop, like that. A loop there, then you get that one, you put that into a loop there like that, like that. Then you get the third one, and you put... Now, I made a mistake, look, you get a long piece of rope, that's it.